start with our motivation. Okay, so they say when listening to teachings, it's good to see ourselves as a sick person suffering from the ills of samsara, to see the Buddha as the doctor who diagnoses it, prescribes the medicine, the Dharma as the medicine that will cure our disease if we take it, and the Sangha as the nurses who help us take the medicine. And so that's a very good paradigm for not only taking refuge, but also the attitude we should have when we're listening to teachings. So it should be an attitude of respect, one of humility, one of sincere interest, one of intelligent contemplation of what's said, taking it in and remembering it. So with this kind of attitude, and especially the motivation of bodhicitta, then let's listen to the teachings on the precious garland that Nagarjuna gave out of compassion. So, I think I read 158 last week, but we can review it. Okay. So whether it be, by the way, if there's a difference in translation between that and this, it's because I've changed sometimes the wording, or sometimes I've used Jeffrey's translation. And I think that is done in McClintock's translation. But in some verses, I prefer Jeffrey's, and so that may be why sometimes the words are different. So whether it be beautiful or ugly, whether it be young or old, the body of a woman is filthy. So to what special quality could you be attached? So it's true, isn't it? Whether somebody, we usually think, oh, a young body is beautiful, and an old body is ugly. But actually, the inside of the young body is the same as the inside of the old body. And the inside of somebody who's very physically attractive is the same as the insides of somebody who isn't very physically attractive. So it doesn't really make much difference. They're both made of the same yucky stuff, okay? So to ask ourselves, if that's the case, then what in the world am I attached to? And especially if you're lusting after young bodies, or if you have a young body and you think, oh, I'm young, I'm very attractive, and I'm smart and intelligent, on the up and up, and I got my whole life in front of me, and let's go for it, and I'm going to attract all these people to me. Isn't that wonderful? Just wait a few years. Yeah. And you will see yourself in a different light, because the generation that happens to be the it generation lasts for 5 years, at the most 10. Yeah. Usually once you hit 30, you're over the hill for being the chief generation that everybody's focused on. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. So you keep feeling like my generation is the young one, that the economy and politics and everything's focused on. Actually, if it is, wait 5 years, wait one presidential election cycle, or 2 if they get if they have a 2-term presidency. And you're going to be your generation's old hat. Yeah? So, this identity of, look at me, I'm young and beautiful, doesn't last very long. And it's really having that kind of identity is a setup for a lot of difficulties. In the same way, somebody who is very athletic and physically strong and has that identity of being athletic and physically strong, as soon as you have that identity, you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment, because how long is your body going to stay that way? Not long. Yeah? And, it's very interesting when you have memories of people you went to high school with, but then you see them later and they don't look anything like they looked when you went to high school with them. In fact, usually once they get to be, 45, 50 and the hair's gray, you don't even recognize them anymore. Yeah, true, isn't it? Yeah. And then some of them, of course, are double the size they were when you knew them in high school. I talked to one man who, he was on a retreat before, and he told this story of, somehow getting in touch with this woman he dated in high school, and she was so beautiful, and, they were both single again now, and so he, called her up and made a date and went to the door, and she was like 250 pounds. Yeah, or 300 pounds, and that wasn't the way she looked in high school. My dad, after my mom died, he looked up a woman that he had known before he married my mom. Yeah, when she was in her 20s, and somehow she was coming down to Southern California, and they met, and he said to me, "She's an old lady." He was so surprised, because he didn't see himself as an old man, and certainly, why is she an old lady? Yeah? But it's like that, It's really like that. And I think I told you that my sister was commenting now that it's harder to get waited on in stores because, you look older, so, don't develop too strong of an identity and too much arrogance about that. Okay, so 159. It is not right to yearn for a pile of excrement, even if it has a nice color or is very fresh and nicely shaped. Likewise, one should not yearn for a man's body. Okay, so there's this pile of poop, very beautiful colored poop. Beautiful, it's not the kind of white stuff you have when you're getting hepatitis, and it doesn't have blood in it like when you have colon cancer. It's beautiful, colored poop. And very fresh, yeah, not stale, nice and moist and soft. And it's shaped, it's sculpted into this beautiful form. Okay? Are you going to get turned on by that? Are you going to want to jump in bed with it? No. Then why do you want that when it's covered by skin? Yeah. Especially if you had the skin and you just held the limp skin here, up. Here's the skin that's wrapped around that beautifully sculpted pile of poop, you know? And so it has, you know, some body hair on it and some head hair. You see the eyebrows and some, you know, all the moles on the skin and the freckles, and here's the skin. That's not very beautiful either, is it? Yeah. So especially when you take that and you put it on this, you know, very sexy piece of feces, yeah, then what in the world are we lusting after? It's true, isn't it? Well, and you're going to say, well, the whole body isn't poop. That's true. Some of the body, you know, there's the liver. Liver is kind of, it's like a light-colored poop, isn't it? Yeah, it's a light brown. What color's the spleen? What color's your spleen? Red, bright red? Or kind of pale pinkish? With maybe some blood vessels in it? Yeah. What color is a gallbladder? Dark? Yeah? Okay. Intestines. Wow, that's really something to love in somebody. Their intestines. Yeah? The long intestine, the short intestine. Okay, verse 160. While the nature of this rotting corpse, with its putrid core covered with skin, looks extremely terrible, why do the lustful not see it? So if the body is really like that, how come we don't see it like that? What in the world is going on in our mind that we look at bodies and think they're attractive? When, you know, they're basically a bunch of organs covered with skin. Yeah, it tells you something about how the depth of the ignorance that we abide in, if we can't even get that. Okay. And also to look at the body and see that it's a walking corpse. You know, people are always afraid of zombies, but that's kind of what living people are. Yeah, is they're zombies. We're walking, rotting corpses. Someone sent me some photos, you know, from, remember the tsunami? And they were trying to identify all the bodies of people who had drowned in Sri Lanka and Thailand and so forth. So somebody I knew had been there, and they had taken pictures, you know, because they had to take pictures and then post them. And sometimes there was the picture with the person's ID, if they had their ID in their pocket. And they had to post them to see if anybody recognized these bodies. The pictures of the bloated, drowned corpses, it was really, you know, quite shocking what the people looked like. And especially when you would see their ID with a smiling face, and then it looked nothing like the bloated corpse. And so, you know, our body, when it's alive, you want to touch it. As soon as it's dead, you know, somebody's body, we don't want to touch it anymore. We don't even want to go near it. It's actually kind of scary. but it's the same thing. Yeah? Except the present one's warm and the other one's cold. So 161, Joe Blow shows up again. And Joe Blow says, the skin is not impure. It is just like a soft cloth. Okay? And Nagarjuna says, actually, like a leather bag filled with a turd, how could it be clean? Okay? So, you know, you may think the skin is soft and beautiful, but it's actually very much like a leather bag with a turd inside. You know, like somebody gives you this beautiful leather bag, yeah, the shape of somebody who's, you know, the shape of a mannequin, yeah, and you open it up and there's a turd, or maybe a few turds. Okay, not so beautiful. So how is it that we don't see this? How is it that we don't see our own body as this, or that other people's bodies are this? 162. Yeah, he goes on and on about this, doesn't it? It's a long section because we don't get it. Okay, while a vase filled with excrement might glitter, it is still objectionable. The body whose nature is unclean is filled with filth. Why isn't it objectionable? Okay, so this beautiful vase, yeah. Oh, in your office you have a very pretty vase, kind of it's gold and it's bright and shiny. You know, if you took that gold vase that glitters and you put maybe some intestines or the tongue, put the person's tongue inside, you know, a few eyeballs, maybe their ears, yeah, their arm muscles and a few bones, yeah. So the vase is very pretty, but the inside, yeah. The Tibetans have this custom, whenever you give something, you never, if it's a container of some sort, you never give it empty. So you want to give somebody this beautiful vase, so you fill it like that. Yeah? Then it's still objectionable, isn't it? Even though it's beautiful. So the body whose nature is unclean and is filled with filth, why isn't it objectionable? 163, if you object to excrement, why not object to this body which takes pure perfume, Garland's food and drink, and turns them into filth? Now here's another thing to look at the body as, okay? When lunch is served, yeah, and we go along to get our food, it looks really good, doesn't it? You know? There's kind of noodles and some veggies. There's nice chocolate chip cookies and, you know, or maybe some applesauce on the dessert thing and fresh green salad. It all looks very good. And we say the food is clean and the food is pure. Yeah. We sit down to eat it. We chew it. If we spat it out, we would not say that it was pure and clean. We would say that it's dirty, and we would throw it away. What made that food that was pure and clean dirty? Our body. Okay? So we talked about this last week too. If you swallow it down and it's in your stomach and you throw it up, then it's even dirtier, isn't it? What made it dirty? The body. And then 1 or 2 days later, when it comes out the other end, it doesn't look anything like, a baked potato with sour cream and butter, and it doesn't look anything like that, does it? But it's just the continuity of the same thing that looked so good when we ate it. So what was it that made it dirty? Our body. Okay? So the same thing, why do we put perfume or aftershave on? Or deodorant? Because our body stinks. Okay? Why do we decorate it with jewelry and garlands and all sorts of things? Because it's not so attractive. Yeah? So at some level, we see the body isn't that attractive. Because if we really thought it was so attractive, why would we wear beautiful clothes to make it look better? Yeah. Why would we, wear scents to make it smell better if we thought it was really from its own side attractive? Okay. So 164. So now he's going to let up on our sexual attachment and refer it to our own body. So a pile of excrement is objectionable, whether it comes from you or someone else. But we don't really think that. Yeah? Because when we poop and it's our poop in the toilet or our pee in the toilet, it's not quite as dirty as other people's poo or poop, is it? Ours is a little bit cleaner than theirs. Yeah? When, because we don't flush all the time here when people pee, so you go in the bathroom and, somebody else peed, it smells so bad. My pee doesn't smell that bad like that. Okay. But actually, yeah, Nagarjuna is saying, whether it comes from us or somebody else, it's just as objectionable. So why not then object to those filthy bodies, whether they are your own or someone else's? Okay, so it's not just a thing of looking at other people's bodies and saying their bodies are filthy, but mine somehow is pure and beyond that. Yeah, when I sweat, it doesn't stink so bad. Yeah, and my farts are not as bad as other people's. Yeah. Somehow my body's a little bit purer. Fat chance. Okay, not like that. So this is actually quite a good thing to become familiar with, because we tend to be very, very attached to our bodies. And at the time we die, attachment to our body is going to be one of our worst enemies. Yeah, because at the time we die, we have no choice but to leave this body. And if instead we're holding on to it, for dear life, not wanting to separate from this body, we're going to be in a lot of excruciating mental pain because of that attachment to the body. While we're alive, if we accustom ourselves to having this awareness of, there's basically a skeleton here, covered with muscles and skin and stuffed with junk, then when we're dying, if attachment comes to the body, then if we just say, but it's nothing but a skeleton and some muscles filled with skin and covered filled with junk and covered with skin. There's nothing to be attached here. Don't cling. Yeah? Then it'll be much easier, I think, for us to, when death comes, to let go of the attachment to our own body. If we remember, when we're dying, look, there's nothing here to cling to. It's a bunch of bones. Yeah? And muscle and gunk. So, mind, let go. Don't cling to this. So your own body is just as filthy as the body of a woman or a man or whoever you're sexually attracted to. So it doesn't make sense to be unattached to both, so doesn't it make sense to be unattached to both the external body and our internal body, the internal being the body that is ours. Okay, so when we really get this, then we stop strutting around wanting everybody to look at our body and see how attractive it is. Because, we see basically there's nothing there that's that gorgeous. Okay. Even though you daily rinse off the discharge from your 9 wounds refer to the different openings in the body, the eyes, the nostrils, the ears, and, mouth and so on. Okay? So even though you daily rinse off the discharge from your 9 wounds, we don't rinse it off, we scrub it off. Yeah? It's like, get that junk out of my ears. Where's the soap? You have to have strong soap to get the smell off your body and, the stuff out of your eyes and, nice toothpaste. Okay? If you still do not realize that the body is impure, then what is the point of explaining this to you? So Nagarjuna is saying, if your own experience is that we wash our body on a daily basis because it's dirty, and we don't get it, that the dirtiness of the body is coming from outside, from inside out, and we think something else is making our body dirty when it's our own body, what's coming out of our own body that's making it dirty. If we still don't realize this and still think the body's pure, then Nagarjuna is a bit exasperated, and he's saying, what's the point of explaining this to you? Yeah? If it's your own experience and you still don't get it. Okay? So having diarrhea is a very good thing for realizing what the nature of your body, and having stomach flu is also. Yeah, you're like, especially like when I was in India, it's coming out both ends. Wonderful meditation, it's like nothing beautiful in this body. Okay. So now Joe Blow comes back and he says, actually, you know what? It doesn't really make much difference whether we know or don't know that the body's unclean. What difference does it make? Let's go out and have a good time with our body and somebody else's body, and, it doesn't matter. Okay. And Nagarjuna says, actually, it does matter, because when we don't realize what the body really is, then we lust after other people's bodies. And in the process of doing that, we do a lot of actions. We create a lot of negative karma that creates the cause for rebirth. Okay? So it's interesting. Think about the kinds of things you've done, when you've wanted to touch somebody else's body. What have you done? Okay? So sometimes we get jealous of the other person, don't we? Nobody else can touch their body, only me. What do we do out of jealousy? Are we nice, kind, sweet human beings? No. We're pretty nasty, aren't we? Okay. And we're jealous of the person, somebody else who might touch the body that we want, and we're jealous if the person we want is looking at somebody else. So we've made at least two enemies, possibly more, through our jealousy, okay? Then think of the trips that you go through to get somebody to look at you. Yeah, this goes on in meditation courses. It's really interesting to watch sometimes. You know, it's like you can tell there's two people, they're kind of right now at opposite sides of the room. And, you know, they do their walking meditation closer and closer together. And they sit together at the silent lunches. And, you know, you can tell something's going on. Just by the way they look at each other. Okay, so, you know, it does matter, this misconception of our mind that the body is clean, that something foul is actually clean and beautiful. It does make a difference. You know, in the same way that the misconception that something that is impermanent is permanent, that something in the nature of dukkha is pleasurable, that something that lacks a self has a self. Having these misunderstandings and distorted conceptions does make a difference because it twists how we look at something. And these attitudes provoke the disturbing emotions, which in turn, you know, motivate harmful actions, and in that way, samsara keeps rolling on. Okay, so the practice of the four establishments of mindfulness is very good for removing these four distorted conceptions. So, although the four distorted conceptions apply to all of the four, you know, the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena, there's a special correlation, okay? So with the body, the primary one, the primary distortion is seeing what is foul as beautiful. Yeah, with feelings, the primary distortion is seeing what is by nature dukkha, unsatisfactory, as pleasurable. Okay? Because we're very attached to our feelings, and they're actually in the nature of being dukkha. The mind, yeah, we think of our mind as permanent, but it's actually impermanent, so that mindfulness helps us overcome the distorted conception that sees what is permanent, that sees what is impermanent as permanent. And then the establishment of mindfulness on phenomena helps us to see that what we think has a self does not have a self. Okay? So these four establishments of mindfulness are very, very effective. We've had a whole series of teachings on them, and we've done at least one, I think 2 winter retreats on it, and people found it very, very helpful. Yeah, and I think we should really do that more. I think quite helpful. Okay. So, you know, so although things don't exist from their own side, conventionally, we can discriminate clean from unclean. Okay, so somebody might say, well, actually, feces and liver and spleen and gallbladder and intestines, they aren't dirty in and of themselves. That's just a conception that you made up, and you're making us believe it. Okay. Now, if that were just a conception, then we, then you would think that we would find at least one human culture that did not think like that. But every single human culture has that idea. Okay? And so if it is just a conception, then we should be able to easily get rid of that conception. And then we would sit down and have a dinner of, fried poop with a side dish of a spleen and beverage, lymph, blood, and pee. Okay? But do people have that for dinner? No. Why not? Because it's disgusting. Okay? So if you say it's just a concept we made up, that these things aren't really disgusting, it's true, they aren't inherently disgusting. But on a conventional level, human beings see things in a certain way, and we all see it as disgusting. Then somebody's going to say, but what about a tantric yogi, who who doesn't see these substances this way? Okay. Well, that's something completely different, because that person is a skilled practitioner who has realized emptiness, and they're able to transform filthy substances into the inner offering. Okay. So I remember when at one of the Western Buddhist teachers' meetings with His Holiness, when there was a lot of discussion about teachers sleeping with their students. And His Holiness commented, first of all, why do they always choose the young, pretty students to sleep with? They don't choose the old, ugly ones. And then, of course, somebody brought up this thing, well, because that's the standard line, it's a tantric practice, this is a compliment, they're bestowing a blessing on you, blah, 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 blah. So His Holiness said, if somebody is at the stage in Tantra, which, there's probably only less than a handful of people who are alive who can do this at this moment. But if you're at that stage, where you are a suitable person to do the consort practice, then you're also at the stage where you can, eat poop and drink pee and blood and stuff like that. And so Bob Thurman said, oh, then we should give these guys the taste test. Any of them that say, well, yes, I'm a tantric yogi and, this and this, give them the taste test and see. Okay. Okay. So, the same way, relating back to, us as human beings, seeing it in the same way. Somebody could say, well, but, flies see our poop as dinner. Yeah, they think it's great. And pigs will eat our vomit, and, Karuna will even drink from the toilet after we've peed in it. Won't she? Well, she grew out of it because we cover the toilets. We put the toilet seats down now. But for a while, that's what somebody could say. So you see, these things are not really dirty. It's just our mental fabrications that see them dirty. Okay, because other living beings don't see them as that in that way. Okay, but as human beings, again, we have a karmic perspective on things that comes from being born in the human realm. Okay, and so our karmic perspective is that these things are ugly. We don't have the karmic perspective of a fly. I was amazed, when I lived in India some years ago. I was just above Dharamsala. There was this little village of Tibetan houses, and they didn't have toilets. I was staying in one of them, and so, whenever I wanted to do my business, I had to take a walk into the forest and do it. And I kind of got used to going to the same place every day, and it was remarkable, because I'd poop, and the next day I'd come back and it was all gone. The flies, or I don't know, somebody else had lunch, but it was gone. So then I offered them lunch another day, and I came back the next morning and it was gone again. So very different karmic vision, than we have. But definitely our human karmic vision is that these things are disgusting, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. 167. This is a great verse. Some compose romantic poetry about this filthy body. Oh, what shamelessness, what idiocy, how worthy of people's contempt. Okay? So it's true, people write a lot of poetry about somebody else's body. Yeah? Your eyes are like diamond, your teeth are like pearls, your intestines are like a string of rubies. Your ears, your earwax is like golden sunshine. Yeah. Your body odor is like perfume of the gods. Come on. Okay. This is what Nagarjuna is saying. What shamelessness, what idiocy, and how worthy of people's contempt. Except lots of people write that poetry. And then the people who receive the poetry get, oh, they love me. Look what he said, I have diamonds and pearls and a string of rubies in my tummy. That's the greatest line to seduce somebody, used throughout history. 168. In this world, sentient beings, obscured by the darkness of unknowing, most quarrel about what they lust for, like dogs fighting over filth. True, isn't it, Sentient beings obscured by the darkness of unknowing ignorance. Okay, so most of them quarrel about what they lust for. Yeah, like dogs fighting over filth. Yeah, Dharamsala, actually in India, everywhere you go, the dogs are constantly fighting with each other. And what are they fighting over? Okay, but that's kind of what human beings are like. Yeah, when we're just blind and we think, I've got to have this is so desirable. Okay. 169, if you scratch an itch, it feels good. But it feels even better not to have an itch at all. So too, one is happy in obtaining worldly desires, but there is greater happiness in having no desires at all. Okay, so when you have an itch, a really bad one, and you're not supposed to move in meditation, Yeah, because this is a period of time. The leader said, don't move for this hour, but it itches so bad, and you're gonna scratch it and hope nobody sees, and it feels so good. Of course, it itches again in another 5 minutes, But forget that. Okay, so when you scratch an itch, it feels good. But wouldn't it be better not to have the itch at all? So too, when we obtain worldly desires, when we get some sexual pleasure or we get pleasure from whatever we happen to be lusting after, what is it? The perfume, the mint chocolate chip ice cream. Huh, Venerable Tarpa? Yeah, we like that one. So, yeah, you get some happiness from it. But wouldn't it be better not to have that craving to start with? Because it's usually when they say ice cream, she and I are going, mint chocolate chip, mint chocolate chip, mint chocolate chip. And then they bring out strawberry. Yuck. Yeah. Not going to waste eating high-calorie something on strawberry ice cream. I'm only going to do that if it's mint chocolate chip. Or maybe fudge, what? Fudge ripple, that's not bad. Yeah, that one's good. Okay. But wouldn't it be better in not having those kind of cravings and preferences at all? Yeah. So when you're really exhausted and you lie down at the end of the day, it's like, oh, this feels so good. Yeah. But wouldn't it be nice not to have a body that got so exhausted to start with? Yeah. So these are really good examples, actually, of how what we call pleasure is just a decrease in a state of suffering. Yeah. Okay, 170. When you analyze things in this fashion, even if you are not yet freed from desires, you will cease lusting after women and men through the gradual decrease of your desire. Okay, so this talks about the result of meditating on the unclean nature of the body. Okay, so, by doing this meditation, going through these verses, verse by verse, contemplating each verse. Yeah. By doing that, you really come to know the body for what it is. After your session, because of the imprint of ignorance, the body may still, and due to the power of attachment, somebody's body may still appear attractive to you. But you can then easily remind yourself that it isn't, because you can go like that and imagine the insides of it. He's been talking a lot about the organs and the poop and pee. For some people it works better, think about the bones. Yeah, practice, with your X-ray eyes, seeing that person's skeleton, or practice seeing their muscles. Yeah, like in that science exhibit. I brought back a poster from when I saw it in Cleveland, where they had preserved people's bodies, so you could actually see the muscles and things. Okay. Okay, but the more we do this meditation, the more we become able to see the body for what it is. And so then the less we just get distracted by all this romantic and sexual hoopla. Okay? And so our wisdom increases. And, as we do it more and more, then even we haven't realized emptiness, still our mind becomes more peaceful and more relaxed, and it becomes easier to concentrate. Okay? Because let's face it, if we don't subdue attachment to other people's bodies, is it easy to practice the 3 higher trainings which lead to liberation? Okay? The higher training in ethical conduct. If you have a lot of lust for other people's bodies, is it easy or difficult to keep good ethical conduct? Especially to abandon the 3rd non-virtue of unwise and unkind sexual behavior. Not easy, is it? Okay. So a lot of lust, what we do with all this attraction, and it becomes difficult to keep good ethical conduct. Is it easy in your meditation to concentrate when you have a lot of romantic interest in people? No, because it's much nicer to daydream about them. There's Buddha boy, and we're on the beach together, and he's so handsome, and da, 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 da. Your concentration goes completely into your daydreams. Yeah? What about the higher training of wisdom? Yeah? Can you generate any kind of feeling for emptiness when your mind is infatuated with somebody else? Forget it, because you're seeing them as totally inherently existent and inherently attractive and inherently pleasurable. Okay? So it becomes real easy to see that this kind of mental state, makes it very difficult to practice. But the more we meditate on the foul nature of the body, the more we decrease our attachment to other people's bodies, and to our own body for that matter, then the easier it becomes to keep good ethical conduct, to concentrate in our meditation, to generate wisdom. Okay. Also, is it easy to generate bodhicitta when you're lusting after somebody? Yeah. I want to attain enlightenment for the sake of this one sentient being that I'm drooling over. All other sentient beings I don't want to be around. I don't care beans about them. I want this one only. Yeah? This kind of attachment, it makes the mind very narrow, doesn't it? Very, very narrow. Okay. So, similarly, we should look at our own body and get rid of the attachment to our own body. And we can do that. I mean, this meditation is not a difficult meditation to do. Our mind has some resistance about doing it because we know it works. But it's not. And we kind of like our daydreams, We kind of like our daydreams. But it does work. And if we do it, you can see that it's not a difficult meditation. You don't have to do complicated madhyamaka analysis to do this meditation. It isn't, it isn't like, is the body produced from self, others, both, or causelessly? You don't have to have teachings on it for 3 months in order to, try and figure out what the verse is talking about. These verses we can understand pretty easily. Yeah, so good to meditate on them. And helpful during the day too, when you walk around. When you look at, when you're looking at something, it's much better if we really take some space from media and advertising, but sometimes it's impossible not to see this. So you see some attractive body, with their far out laundry soap, and you use your X-ray vision to see what the inside of that body looks like, Or another far out body with their red sports car. And again, you use your X-ray eyes. What's inside of that body? Okay. So there's lots of opportunities to practice this. Okay, so that concludes the section on, lusting after other people's bodies. So, Nagarjuna has been giving us a lot of advice here about how to create the cause for higher rebirth and abandon the cause for lower rebirth. That's the general section that we're in now. So now we're moving on, still in that same general section, how to abandon cause for lower rebirth and create the cause for upper rebirth. So verse 171 is referring to another action to abandon. So before we had, there's 4 actions to abandon. Do you remember what the first one was? Intoxicants. Second one? Gambling. Third? Lust. Fourth? Hunting. Okay. So the verse for hunting. Hunting is the terrible cause of a short life, fear and suffering, as well as rebirth in the hell. Therefore, always firmly refrain from killing. We should maybe put this sign on our no hunting signs. Put this verse on our no hunting signs. Yeah, it would actually be quite good. Yeah, even if they want to hunt, they'll think the people who own this land are crazy. I don't want to go on it. And they'll go away. No, seriously. Okay? But it's the terrible cause of a short life. Yeah? So, so we talk about the results of karma. One of the results of karma is the result similar to the cause. So when you kill, then even when you're born human, the result similar to the cause means you experience something like what you caused others to experience, is you have a short life. Okay? It's a cause to have a short life. It's the cause of fear. Why? Because we cause other animals fear when we hunt. Yeah, it's terrible, the fear that animals go through when they're being stalked and having to run away, and, it's horrible. So, but the karmic result is then you're born as a person who's very fearful. Yeah. It's also the cause of suffering. When you hunt, you cause immense suffering to somebody. It's murdering an animal. Yeah, and animals, they hurt when they're, killed just as much as human beings do. Okay? But the result, again, similar to the cause, is that we experience suffering. Yeah? As well as rebirth in the hells, so that's the ripening result, in other words, the realm that you're born into. So when you really think of the causes, the results, the karmic results of hunting, yeah, then, as Nagarjuna says, therefore, always firmly refrain from killing. Yeah. So we should give up fishing, hunting, any other ways of trapping or killing sentient beings, whether for food or for sport. Okay? So some people, their whole occupation is killing. Maybe they're an exterminator, yeah? Or maybe they're a butcher. I remember being in Paris, walking through the part of the city where the butchers were, and seeing dumpster after dumpster filled with the heads of cows, the decapitated head of cows in these just dumpsters, you know, because they had been killed and then, you know, the body sliced up for people's dinner. I also remember as a kid going fishing with relatives, and then, you know, being so proud, I caught a fish and taking it in and cutting it open, and it was still alive and it was jumping around, and it's like, never again, you know, seeing what that fish was going through. You know, and the thing that finally turned me into a vegetarian before I became a Buddhist was being in Germany and getting some sausage, cooking it, cutting it open, and blood coming out. They had this thing called blood sausage in Germany, but we couldn't read German, so we didn't know what it said. Yeah, and it was just totally disgusting. And, you know, that's kind of what did it for me. So to really abandon hunting, killing, trapping, any kind of killing of insects or animals, yeah. When you look out, you know, because you can see the deer and the turkeys and everything. I mean, and to think that somebody would kill them to eat them, you know, to me, I mean, you look at the deer and they're so sweet, yeah. By the way, 2 of them were staring at you when you were shoveling the snow. Yeah, they were totally glued, looking at you. Usually it's people who stare at deer, but these 2 deer were staring at Tanya. Yeah. Yeah. But same with the turkeys. Yeah. Or once I saw a raccoon. Yeah, the raccoons are the ones that, yeah. And we've had skunks sometime. We haven't seen them. We mostly smell them, but not too often. Okay. But, you know, to think of harming any living being and making it suffer from killing it is just, you know, something we should not do. So we, you know, it's been an interesting adventure for us living out in the countryside, especially with the insects. You know, when we had a whole infestation of carpenter ants in Ananda Hall, yeah, which we didn't discover until the washing machine knob leaked. The washing machine's upstairs, and the water was dripping out downstairs, and we opened the downstairs ceiling, and the whole thing was filled with ants. Yeah, do you remember that? Not forgetting that one. Yeah.
Check that again, because there are constantly ants in the bathroom and the level just before I forget it.
Yeah. We usually will have a few ants in the springtime. Yeah, the thing is to catch them and take them outside. But we do, you're supposed to go and listen with a stethoscope. Yeah, and you can hear them in the walls. We'll put you at it. Yeah. Yeah, but to do our best to not kill, to help them live happily ever after somewhere else. You know, we've put in a lot of time and energy to do that, but it's a core value of living at the Abbey. Okay, then 172. Okay. Actually, let's stop here. Yeah, we'll stop in the middle of hunting. And if you have some questions or comments.
I'm just thinking about at the time of death, this grasping at the body that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it also, I'm just imagining that I would be afraid of, well, what else am I going to have? Not just that I'm attached to this body, but this fear of, well, I don't want a lower kind of body. So I'm just wondering, how to keep working with this fear of, well, I don't want to hang on to this.
But I don't want something worse than this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're dying and you don't want to hang on to this body, because anyway, you don't have any choice. You've got to separate. But you also don't want to take a body in one of the lower realms. Yeah? So the way to avoid that is to create a lot of virtue now, so that then when you die, you have no regrets, and you have some confidence of, I've spent my whole life creating virtue. I've abandoned killing and harming other living beings. And, I've made dedication prayers for full awakening and to have a good rebirth. And so now I'm just going to relax and let that process go and direct my mind, at the time of death. Again, praying, may I have a precious human life, or may I be reborn in the Pure Land. Yeah. So instead of going, I don't want to be born as a hell being, stay focused on, I want a precious human life, and to meet with qualified teachers when I'm young and practice and, focus on the aspiration. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
I think that the $6 million question of why we continue to see our bodies with this grossness of it, to see them so beautiful, is that when I do look at the deer and I do look at the turkeys and how they are totally embodied in that karmic appearance, that if they were humans before, if they were gods before, if they were in the formless realm before, the rebirth is so strong that they just behave like deer. And the animal realm is so propelled with this particular kind of thinking. So I say, well, what about the human realm? That we're so filled with the senses and the desires, and it's like we're so immersed that there's no other way of thinking. No matter if we've gone to the highest realms of existence,
Mm-hmm.
still in the rebirth itself, everything goes amnesia.
Yeah.
Except the life that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, the appearance of this life is so strong that, we can't remember previous lives, and we can't even think of any other life. And we're completely immersed in the karmic vision of whatever kind of body we have animals have no possibility to think of any other choice. As human beings, we have that possibility to think that there's a choice, that there's another way. But most human beings don't think about that. Yeah? They think about, how can I get the next pleasure? We got a letter from a 19-year-old student recently, and he was saying, that he was just kind of looking at his life and realized that all he did, as he put it, was, I look for the next sweet spot. Where am I going to get my next pleasure? And I go from looking from one pleasure to looking for another, for looking to another. And I thought, wow, somebody who's 19 saw this, And he said, I feel really sad, that that's kind of all we're doing in life. And it is. And yet we think that we're ecstatically happy, when we're just going from, looking for one pleasure to looking for another. Yeah, so much controlled by the body and the karmic view that we have in this realm. Yeah, it's quite scary. Quite scary. I mean, that to me is what I find most scary about the lower realms. I mean, the physical suffering is one thing, but to have your mind be so completely ignorant that you can't see anything else, that you can't understand the Dharma, you can't understand anything about the path. You know, to me that's just really scary. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, about animal liberation. Yeah, we'll buy the crabs and liberate them, and then go out and have a lobster dinner afterwards. You know, right? Yeah. Or we'll buy the worms and do an animal liberation, or buy some turtles and do an animal liberation, and then go out and, you know, have barbecued ribs with our friends afterwards. You know, this is another form of this kind of ignorance. You know, we're not making the link. Yeah, we're not making the link when we're eating that this is somebody's body and they got killed for our lunch. Yeah. Okay, so they're saying it's all coming down to me, attachment to my body, and then the 4 seals. They said 4 seals, or the 4... Maybe they meant the 4 distortions, because that's not the... Yeah. And then what was the end part of it?
Is it the best analysis that of self?
Okay. Yeah, so of course, the analysis of self, you know, of emptiness is the best one to remove ignorance. But since that's one also is the most difficult to do, we need to practice other things that are easier in the meantime, so that we can stave off the very gross forms of the afflictions. Okay, so we apply other analyses, other thought training, and so on. You know, and while we're at the same time building up our understanding of emptiness. Because it's not like we're going to sit down and realize emptiness, and that analysis is always going to work for us when our minds are completely overwhelmed with something. Yeah. So we have to learn a diversity of techniques, although that one is the best.